All right. FHSAA's Associate Executive Director of Athletic Services, Scott Jamison, joining us here to talk about what happened today in this board meeting, kind of give a little more FHSAA perspective. So that way, any questions that basically y'all have, drop in the chat. We can get clarification. Scott, first and foremost, obviously, 11-1 vote to fold the rural teams into Class 1A, at least for the next 2 years. What? Because I heard Craig Damon, the executive director, Craig Damon, say that it's right now 1A was down to 8 districts, which I know that when it was initially the final districts came out back in December right before Christmas, it was showing 11 districts. So kind of give us a frame of what's going to happen here now that these teams that are left from rural are going to be folded into 1A, and what that time looks like for schools that, hey, when are we going to find out when is things going to be finalized? Because again, we know that some schools are making decisions based on kids transferring and stuff, and that's going to happen all the time now because of the way the laws are.
Sure. No, great question. Thanks for having me, Josh. Appreciate it. And yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has, obviously. Today was, some changes that are coming for the state for certain classifications. So we have about 8 districts right now in 1A due to the teams that have chosen to withdraw on our end. We haven't re-released anything because of that. We were still receiving stuff from schools who were kind of on the fence, and schools who had been announced for other leagues and stuff, and telling us, well, hold on, we're not sure, we're doing all that. So we were kind of holding off until after this meeting before we released it again. We didn't want to have to continuously put it out. So the timetable would be, we'll probably need a little bit of time to allow schools to meet with their administration, meet to see what they want to do, to make that decision for their school, whether that means going into the independent, which will now offer the new independent league, whether that means coming back to the state series, whether that means leaving. We're going to have to allow a little bit of time for that. I don't want to put a too tight of a timetable on it. I know Mr. Damon mentioned 2 weeks. That would be on the long end, hopefully, of it, because obviously we know the coaches have to make schedules. We know coaches have to get out there and get games. So we're not denying that needs to happen as soon as possible. So we one of the coaches I've talked to, that I've communicated with, all the rural schools that I talked to, all of them that were remaining, had some tremendously great conversations with the athletic directors and some football coaches, and really opened up a great dialogue with them. My response to them was, we're going to get it done as quickly as possible. My goal would be have it out tomorrow. It's not realistic.
Not realistic, obviously. Yeah,
unfortunately, I'd love to have it out on Monday. I don't know that that's realistic. I thought at one point it might be, but I do believe we have to give these schools an opportunity. And if we were to put it out early, we'd probably have to put it out again, and then maybe even again after that, just because I do think there's going to be some movement. So at least allowing a little bit of time, in fairness to the schools that are with us, and maybe in other organizations, to make that determination of what they want to do, what's best for their school. Like Mr. Damon said, we want people to do what's best for their school, and we understand that the FHSAA may not be what's best for their school, and that's okay. We want them to do what's best for them and for their program. And we want them to have an opportunity and some time to talk about that with their administration and be able to make a decision that best fits their school.
Absolutely. I guess in the sense of all this, I know we mentioned that, with all this, because it kind of combines in, and I was hoping maybe someone would ask about this, but maybe I got a kind of an answer, but, maybe you can provide more of a clarity. Okay, we got the decision, obviously moving rural into 1A, but what does that leave the decisions, especially with some schools with 2A and 3A? Because obviously there's been some teams that have already released schedules, and now all of a sudden here's this change already over here with rural 1A. And what do you tell schools now that, may have dropped their schedule, saying, could they tell them to be anticipating some changes here because of the votes that happened today?
You're talking 2A and 3A?
Well, 2A and 3A, but I know that some schools may, and then there's also maybe a couple of schools that may say, hey, you know what, the teams that are already trying to decide their schedule, but they decide, hey, we want to go this independent league. We're out of the district now.
Yeah, so there could be some changes, and some coaches I've talked to that have called, and ADs that have called just from 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A, and have asked these questions is if there's assistance needing with scheduling, we would ask, for schools to hold off finalizing their schedules until we're able to get these districts out. Again, I know it's not ideal, not what we want to do, But to hold off as long as they can, just because we want to make sure once we get this out that we at least have a framework of what it's going to look like, because there will be some changes probably in 2 and 3A. Now, every rural team that is remaining, the 16 that are there, we may have 1 or 2 that may go the independent route and play in the independent league. May have more than that may go, but those will all be in 1A. There will be no rural teams that will be entering 2A or 3A. They will all be placed into 1A.
Okay.
So as far as 2A and 3A go for that, there won't be any changes, but there could be some movement now with this. And that's part of why releasing it tomorrow or Monday probably isn't realistic, because we may get some 2A and 3A schools now that say, hey, we'd like to do this independent option. The sooner we know that, the better. The longer we're waiting, obviously they have that option to go rural all the way up until, go independent until all the way up until a few weeks into the season. But the earlier the better, just for scheduling and we don't want to hang people out to dry, because once there's contracts, then it becomes a little bit messy. But for 2A and 3A, there'll be some small changes probably there in the districts. It's not going to be a wholesale like adding districts and stuff like it will be for 1A. We anticipate probably, as of now, 10 districts in 1A is what I would guess it's going to look like, if I had to put a number on it. And that's, obviously subject to change depending on the attrition and adding that we get over the next few days and week.
So if anybody wants to ask this, I'll probably go ahead and just ask this now. That way I can nip the question in the bud, kind of, so to speak.
Sure.
The way the playoff brackets could look like in these classifications could be, each classification the playoff brackets could look different based upon the number of districts and the way the regions are set up. Correct? Is that what my understanding is? How
you're talking 1A, 2A, 3A, that kind of stuff? Yeah. Potentially, yes. Okay.
Because just in case anybody wants to ask that question, so I know that gets asked a lot and stuff like that. And then I guess the thing that ties into this is the 12-0 vote that for the dealing with the independent status of schools. Obviously you're basically kind of tell people, is it my understanding, the way I'm understanding the way the wording was in the agenda is basically saying, hey, okay, if you're going to be a full member with the FHSAA, you got to abide by our rules with the independent status, or otherwise you got to go member by member, but you got to go sport by sport for membership status. And the membership sport by status, by sport, and so they can play in a different association. Is that correct? And my understanding is basically needed to choose one route or the other.
Yeah, that's correct. So with football, if another association were to play outside of our dates, play by different rules, have different structure, then yes, that would be a necessity if a school is going to play in that other association at this point. And we've kind of allowed it to happen for the last year or so. But, it's reached a point where per policy and with liability and all that kind of stuff, we just have to create that delineation there. Again, we don't want to discourage anybody from doing what's best for their school. This is not about discouraging anybody from doing anything. This is just the nature of how we have to move forward with separating. And now, especially now that we're offering that option of the independent league, it really helps create that delineation of saying, all right, you're either independent with the FHSAA, which allows you this opportunity in this independent league, or your state series with us, or you go no team, which there are quite a few teams that already do that. They play in a different league and they are already no team. And so that would be, and when I say no team, that's just the way they would declare it with us, is that in our minds, they wouldn't have a team with us. So it would not be under our jurisdiction. So whatever association they're playing under would completely have control over that, the rules and regulations as far as that sport goes for that school. Now, any other sports they stay in with us, they're still able to maintain state series. They can still play in the state championships. If they happen to play in a conference-like structure that ends prior to our state series starting, no issues at all. That's not a problem. It's just, again, when it starts to get into going independent to then participate, as I said in the meeting, the word independent at that point does not fit anymore.
And I know there's been some questions. I've gotten some questions from some coaches and stuff to what is the difference? I mean, what is the biggest difference between full membership to member by sport? Because some people are saying, hey, if my school goes member by sport, like say the volleyball team ain't able to host a district tournament anymore. That's what they're kind of asking. Can they, is because I know there's certain perks that, obviously comes with full membership versus being member by sport. Obviously I know the home campus is a big thing that people talk about, the access and stuff like that. But, one of the things I'm reading here is like the privileges of full membership was like host of multi-school events that require official office approval. Membership by sport, you get some privileges, but not limited to privilege. Obviously, you mentioned the state series and being able to compete for district title and state championships.
Yeah, so being able to participate in the state series, it would not restrict a school from doing district tournaments and stuff like that within the state series. That would be for regular season, large-scale events that are going on, sanctioned events during the season and everything like that. Really, the main difference, as you already alluded to, is that the access to home campus for that sport, just that sport in general, would be taken. And then the ability to sit on committees or governance committees to vote in elections would also not be available to those member by sports. But that's essentially where the differences lie.
So maybe use as a case example. Okay, school A goes to another association for football. Those other sports that are left are FHSAA by sport members, but those by sport members like volleyball, they wouldn't be able to sit on their volleyball advisory committee because they're not a full member at that point.
That's correct.
Okay, so that makes sense. Okay, so that makes sense there. So that kind of gives a little bit of addressing of what some questions that have been had, during the last few hours. Like, okay, how does this read out? So it's
great questions. It's great questions. Yeah, no, that you nailed it. I mean, if it's any committees like that are a part of the governance structure of our association, you have to be a full member to take part in that, to run for those elections, to be able to sit on those seats and to vote. If we have voting for the elections, for example, for those seats or any other votes that take place, those would be the main two things.
And that would also include would that also be included be able the ability to be able to be able to sit on the board of directors too, correct?
That's correct.
So, okay, so that clears that up. So, hey, those are the key differences, and that, for a lot of schools, they do have to make a decision here at this point. It's do we keep full membership status or do we go member by sport? And you obviously alluded to it already. Some schools have already done that. And they had done that before this even came about. That they already decided to go by sport for member status.
That's right. Yeah, we have schools that have already done that, and they've been functioning and no problem. So.
No, absolutely. And I guess at this particular point now, with the rural classification gone, does that leave I guess that some people were asking me like what happens with because the villages hosted the rural state championships the last couple of years, FIT, what has happened with all that? Some people are asking about open division, and I'm like, well, those are good questions, but I don't know the answers to them.
Yeah, so the open division will be addressed at one of the next few board meetings. There'll be some things that'll be brought there and lots of discussion that'll be had. We had some great discussion at the football advisory meeting that we appreciate Shelton Cruz and the FHSAA hosting that meeting there. It was awesome. We had the entire committee was there, plus probably 30 or 40 coaches. It was fantastic. A lot of good discussion about the open division. Lots of great stuff that went on there. So open divisions, it's coming, it's happening. It's just a matter of what the final product looks like. I do believe there's going to be some tweaking, whether that's by sport or whether it's just football or whether it's currently the setup is that it's a 8-team double elimination tournament. I don't believe that's going to stay in place, especially for football. I don't know that a double elimination tournament makes sense for football. So I do think that what's going to be brought will probably look a little different, whether it's 8 teams, 12 teams. That's something this has been a 2-year long discussion. We've been going to committees with it. We've gotten lots of feedback. And so it'll be something that we're basing off of the feedback we've gotten from the schools, from the coaches, from the ADs, as far as the open division goes. As far as the rural division, with the villages, it's unfortunate that the rural division went this direction. It is what it is. At this point, we're adjusting the way we need to adjust. I think I'll echo Mr. Damon's statements. We hope to see the rural division back in 2 years. We'd love to have it back. I personally believe there's a place for it. I think it is something that was worked hard for almost 20 years ago to make this happen. And I do believe there's a place for it. I do believe it's important. And hopefully the schools feel the same way and we can move in that direction again. And, it gives us 2 years to kind of see how things play out, how this independent league plays out and give us more information so that we have everything we need to, again, try to do the best we can to bring that back. And we'll work with everybody who's, has a vested interest in it and doing what we can to bring it back. As far as the villages, that's a discussion we'll have to have here internally and with them to see where we go, since there's no longer games there. The idea would still be to have some sort of a fit tournament in the state series, since that was voted in. So, maybe we offer the fit opportunity there to the villages. That's something we'll have to discuss.
No, absolutely here. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, because I know this was on this was something that did come out of the football advisory, and was the ADAC was about going straight 100% max preps rankings. What's the movement on that from yesterday's ADAC meeting, that the athletic directors, for people not wanting to know the lingo that we're all using here, is that going towards the full board now for a change in the rankings model for football, or are we kind of sitting there maybe not?
I can tell you exactly what vote it received yesterday if you give me like 2 seconds.
I'll give you 2 seconds, because honestly, I know that some people, I've had people on our Florida HS football message boards asking about this, in particular. Some people are leery about using max press rankings, but I'm like, well, I mean, the FHSAA ranking is a derivative of the max press ranking. There's just differences, but some people say, hey, the max press rankings seem to be much better. Even coaches will say, hey, this is why it came out of the football advisory committee into the ADAC.
Well, the first thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to argue with the football coaches, because they know more than me when it comes to that. Seriously, that's not even, it's I can laugh about it, we can laugh about it, but they know more than I do when it comes to that stuff. So, a couple of years ago when the change was made, the idea was to go max preps. The issue with that was that the board was a few different things as far as forfeitures, and they use a predictive model. That predictive model is no longer used. They actually use a panel. There's actually a panel of individuals. So there is a human element in the max preps polls now in the national poll, which does affect obviously the state poll. So the football advisory committee put forth an item to move to 100% max preps, which would include forfeitures not counting anymore in the rankings. So you could potentially see a team that has to forfeit games that's has a record that may not indicate whether they should be in the rankings, but they're still a really, really good football team. And so their ranking will not be affected by those forfeits. It'll be something we'll have to look at internally to see why did they get those forfeits, and do they need to still be in the state series kind of a situation. But the recommendation yesterday from the AAC was 13-1 in favor of moving forward with 100% max preps. That will now go to the board of directors in either February or April for implementation next year. So that will be something that would go in next year. Again, we felt that it was, we typically have a 2-year process. This is a special case where the rankings we had in place changed, ownership changed of the company, which changed the way they did the rankings. And so we felt it was appropriate to go ahead and say, all right, let's allow for the coaches, since this has changed and since there are some differences there that we were not anticipating, allow the coaches to have an opportunity to say, all right, do we want to continue in this direction, or do we want to shift gears while we have the opportunity to shift gears in kind of a transition period for max preps? They are wanting to go in that direction. Obviously, that'll be up to the board to make that final determination, but the coaches were in favor of it. And then again, to the tune of 13-1 yesterday, the ADAC was also in favor of it.
That is good news to hear, and that front, to understand that, hey, there's a change. Obviously, maybe some less complaints from the coaches about the rankings process going forward. They're like, hey, at least but I guess at the end of the day, no ranking system is ever going to be perfect, and a lot of ranking systems, you never know what the exact formula is going to be. You just know what the components are going to be, and at the end of the day, again, nothing's going to ever be perfect. That's what I should say here. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. And in a perfect world, well, we wouldn't be here having these meetings.
That's right. That's right.
But I think that's all the questions I've got right now, Scott. I mean, at this particular point, you're saying that the timeline right now, probably at least 2 to 3 weeks before we finally get more of what the refinalized districts are going to look like.
Mr. Damon said 2 weeks. He gave a timetable of 2 weeks. I think that is a safe long end of it. If we can get it out sooner, we will. If we're confident and comfortable that we've given schools an opportunity to make those decisions for themselves and what's in the best interest of their student athletes. And then if we can put something out we're comfortable with prior to 2 weeks, we will, but we'd like to put a 2-week timetable on ourselves to try to make this happen. That will be the goal, again, just for our coaches and for their sanity of being able to put those schedules together.
And absolutely here. And with that said, if you all got questions after watching this, listening to this, you can reach out to Scott himself at Jamison at FHSAA.org, or you can call the 352-372-9551, and his extension is 180. So that way if you got more questions for Scott, he's going to answer for them, because he does. He does answer my questions, and I know he answers other questions as well. And I know they get a lot of questions each day, and especially they'll probably have a lot more coming through. And and also I do believe that Craig Damon they're gonna do a social media thing, so he'll explain it even further. So
he's been recording it. Yep. And my direct number is 352 to my office is 352-681-8474. That rings straight through to my cell phone and to my office. And I'm happy. Josh knows I texted him and said, "Hey, you want me to come on? I'm happy to answer questions. I'll never dodge a question or an opportunity to answer questions. I'm happy to do that. I love talking to coaches, even when they're fired up. That means they're passionate. It means they care. So that makes me happy.
A lot of people are fired up today. A lot of people are fired up, and
that's okay. Being fired up is okay. We can all, in my opinion, speak respectfully, and we all, at the end of the day, we all want what's best for the kids. And so that's what we're all marching to the same drumbeat for that. And as long as we all know that, I think we can have some nice civilized conversations. We always have great conversations. And if you want to have me on, if you get a whole list of questions you want me to come on and answer, I'd be happy to do that.
We'll do that again, because I'd rather have these conversations and be able to put this out there to the people, not because we have obviously a lot of coaches. We do have the athletes following, but we also have a lot of parents and, community members out there that are like, hey, what's going on here? I don't understand this. Well,
we don't want you guys to have to guess. We don't want you to have to guess and speculate and all that kind of stuff. And we'll, as long as we can give you the answers and we're able to, and it's something that is, something that's a known quantity for us, we will let you know. We'll be upfront with it. And, we want to, again, we want to do what's best for the kids at the end of the day. And that's what it's all about. And that's why we're all here. So we appreciate you, Josh, for everything you do.
No, absolutely. Scott, appreciate you being able to come on and talk with us for a few minutes. And hopefully that some of these questions that y'all have had for during the last few hours, they've been answered. And if you're going back and watching this or listening to this, you got some answers. And then Craig Damon will have his social media video coming out on the FHSAA handles later on the day, or I think today is, but for here on Thursday afternoon, that stuff will be out, and then people will be able to, again, call the FHSAA office if you got more questions, or email.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
All right. Well, Scott Jamison, that is Scott Jamison from the FHSAA office, the Associate Executive Director of Athletic Services. Scott, thank you so much for joining us here. All right. Well, we appreciate Scott Jamison joining us here on the Florida HS Football Show here on our YouTube feed, and also on our podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and iHeartRadio. We definitely appreciate that. We appreciate Corey Davis also jumping on to talk about it as well, because Corey has had a lot of teams in his area, or teams that are connected to, that have been playing in the Sunshine State Athletic Association. We've reached out to the Sunshine State Athletic Association. We did have a couple messages go back and forth trying to figure out if we can get anybody on from the Sunshine State Athletic Association. I think right now we may not get that until for another show, because there's a lot of questions to be answered. There's a lot of things that need to be figured out, and what's going to happen now, what direction's going to happen because of this decision. There's a lot of stuff that's going to happen here now for these schools in the Sunshine State Athletic Association, as to, do they retain their full membership FHSAA, or, as you heard Scott Jamison just say, that some schools have already done this. They did this way before this vote even came around, that they've gone by sport member status, and so their schools can play in the in the SSA for football, or for a different sport, and keep FHSAA membership status for all their other sports. So that's pretty much the thing. And hopefully that answers your questions. But if y'all got any questions, you can drop me a line at FLAHS Football on X/Twitter, or you can shoot me an email, joshua.wilson@FloridaHS Football, and we can answer those questions, or bring those questions to Scott. Or if we got questions for the SSA in particular, we'll bring those questions to them, and hopefully we'll be able to get a representative from the Sunshine State Athletic Association to join us here on the Florida HS Football Show.